Hi, I'm Peter J. Ray. Welcome to Adventures in History. Today's topic is John S. Ray's Oberlin College Diary, 1946, Part 20. This is getting near the end of his senior year at Oberlin, and so this is really something. My father, this was originally published as Zook Family Memories Collection number 49, or ZFMC 49, published on May 19th, 1997, when I was living in Guam, so that's pretty good. June 19th, 1946. Finally rolled out this morning and did a little reviewing for the psychology final. It wasn't bad at all. I will probably get a B for the course. Bob Slaughter and I listened to the big fight this evening. Joe Louis knocked Billy Kahn out with no trouble at all at 2 minutes and 19 seconds of the 8th round. We bought a half-gallon jug of wine this evening and got a buzz on. Then we had a big session after all of the lads came in. June 20th, 1946. Wes, Bob Slaughter, and I had a muddy round of golf this afternoon and then the commencement rehearsal. Bought another jug before the prom and had a pretty decent time with Gretch, everything considered. These last few days are really great. June 21. Janie and I buzzed out to the quarry this morning and stayed all day. The sun was great, though the breeze was a little cool. I might say that we had one hell of a session after everyone else had cleared out late in the afternoon. We took off to Timbers and Lorraine this evening with the Glassels. We were both pretty well shot. We heard about the grease deal and everything seems to be going through. A fine day. June 22. Wes and I had a quick 9 holes of golf this morning, fine weather. The Gables gang all buzzed out to the quarry again this afternoon. Picked up quite a bit of sun. The folks came over this evening along with the Lacys and Aunt Mary. Mother and Dad gave me a beautiful watch for graduation, and the Marion folks gave me a very sharp-looking piece of luggage. We all went to the senior commencement recital, and I might say it was really good. Illumination night was quite a sight. Thousands of lanterns up. I drove a bunch of kids up to Ritchie's in Gretch's car later in the evening. It was pretty bushed before it was over. A long day. Jerry Benson and his brother pulled in this evening. June 23rd. Went out to the quarry as soon as I got up this morning and stayed until late in the afternoon. Another beautiful day. Liz and I bummed a meal from the Roths and the Galloways. I really got some sun today. Had a gay old time up here in the room this evening. Ovington, Art, Benson, Wes, Red, Rash, and I had a big poker session until 1:30. Ovington and I came out on top. June 24th. My sunburn was a little itchy today, so I didn't go to the quarry. We made a rapid trip to Elyria this afternoon and brought back 4/5. The wedding rehearsal came off this evening. Afterwards, we all went out to Timbers and all started off for the big bachelor's party. About 12:30, we adjourned back to the room and really had a time with the rock and rye, gin and whiskey, what you might call the be-all and end-all of brawls. June 25th, 1946. This morning I was graduated from Oberlin College, and this afternoon Red was married, and I might say that I've really had a headache on all day. The commencement exercises were really quite an effort. Our family went to the alumni luncheon this noon. We sat too close to the Wilsons to suit Mother. Jerry and I ushered for the wedding, which I must say was very simple and effective. Beth looked very beautiful. Pop came over this evening and we carted all of our stuff home. I can't believe that I'm finished at Oberlin. June 26th. Worked away until noon ordering my stuff. This afternoon we picked up loose ends for the jaunt, and this evening we worked on the itinerary. I caught up on the letter writing also. My sister Carol is getting to be quite a young lady. June 27th. Finished up all of the odds and ends for the trip today. My haircut is really on the short side. Our car drives much more easily with the clutch fixed. June 28th. We hit the road about 8:30 this morning after a big breakfast. Picked up one fast lift into Delaware, Ohio. The younger Freilich had not yet arrived, nor had Slaughter. I buzzed off shortly by myself and pulled into Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania about 9 o'clock p.m. I checked with Delaware and everything is okay. Wes had a pretty good deal set here in town. He has a car and an enormous home in which we can stay overnight. The Snowdens are of the moneyed Steel Group in town. Sandusky to Pittsburgh, 285 miles. June 29th. The Snowdens have really treated us royally. Their colored man Ivy drove us out to the Turnpike entrance this morning and we were off. 2 rides brought us all the way into Washington, D.C. The Turnpike is such a perfect highway that it's actually dull to drive on it. No crossroads, no steep grades, no billboards, all in all rather dull. A cloudburst came down just after we got to our destination. The Ellingtons picked us up and we all had a rather belated supper about 8:30. Pat's father is a retired Marine captain and a very jovial old fellow. Pat is the best young woman that Wes has come across in my estimation. Pat fixed me up with a very attractive but proper young wench, and we all went out for the evening. We found a fine place to dance, but soon buzzed because Wes and I were so warm. Then a little trip over to Mount Vernon, and we called it quits. Pittsburgh to Washington, 240 miles. June 30th. We all slept late this morning and had brunch about 12:30. This afternoon, Wes, Pat, and I took off to see Washington. First, we went over to Mount Vernon and saw Washington's home and tomb. I might say the heat was stifling. Then back to Washington. The town is filled with beautiful, important-looking buildings, mostly done in the classic Greek style. All of the buildings are low to set off the height of the Washington Monument. The Lincoln Memorial, the Monument, and the Capitol are all set in one long straight line and are all very impressive. I was very much stirred by the grave of the unknown soldier. Here lies in glory an American soldier known but to God. And the Arlington Cemetery. Robert E. Lee's mansion was another of the classic Greek affairs set on the crest of a hill. The Jefferson Memorial is a great white marble building which reminded me of the Pantheon. The Supreme Court building is of shining white marble. We walked through part of the Mellon Art Gallery. It must have cost millions. The Smithsonian Institute was closed, so I'll have to catch that later. The Pentagon is just as large as it is said to be. We gave the Library of Congress a rather thorough going over, the Declaration of Independence and Constitution. Washington, D.C. is the cleanest and most impressive of all the American cities that I have so far seen. However, the heat is really something. The White House looks just as I thought it would. The atom bomb test was carried out on Bikini Atoll this afternoon and didn't do nearly so much damage as was expected. We had dinner in a snappy seafood restaurant and took in a terrific show. The bride wore boots. We'll buzz tomorrow. July 1. Pat's dad drove us out to a good jumping-off spot this morning, and we jumped. They really showed us a fine time. 4 rides brought us close to Wurtsboro. A big tree blew down on the road about half a mile from here and caused considerable trouble and several bad accidents. A very heavy fog has set in also, which only adds to the already heavy atmosphere. I called home this evening and found that Dick and Bob have made some rather mutton-headed plans. We're to be in New York the 3rd to discuss plans since we're likely not to leave for 2 weeks yet. We'll very probably be late. Wes and I got quite a bang out of the rough-talking lady downstairs. Washington to Wurtsboro, New York, 305 miles. July 2. The lady of the house fixed us a whopping big breakfast this morning for only 50 cents. We waited over 2 hours for our first ride this morning, but our first ride brought us clear up to Lake George, so it was well worth waiting for. We first located a room and checked over the town. It seems to be a very quiet type of resort, well filled with Jewish people. We played miniature golf this afternoon and had a long discussion over some beer and are ready for the sack. Wurtsboro to Lake George, New York, 175 miles. July 3rd. We really had one fine day today. We rolled out of the sack about 10 and rented a rowboat at 11. We bought some food and had a jug of wine and rowed out into the middle of the lake. Then we just lounged around all afternoon, except for about half an hour, when a wind brought out the whitecaps and gave us some excitement. We jumped out of the boat late in the afternoon for a swim. The water was fine and the sun great. We played 2 more rounds of miniature golf and are calling it quits for the day. Wes is going to have a little trouble with his burn. July 4th. After a long night's rest, we hit the road about 9:30 this morning. Cars by the hundreds were coming north, but few were going south. I might say that our luck was outstandingly poor. We had long waits, and when we finally got a through ride, he had violent troubles with his cooling system. We lost considerable time with him. Finally, we caught various trains from New Rochelle out to Floral Park and met the gang there. Bob Slaughter's brother looks like his twin to me. We had a long discussion about the trip and are sacking it now about 1:30. Lake George to New York City, 200 miles. July 5th, 1946. Wayne Duff and Bob Slaughter got up early and went into the city this morning. Wes and I slept late and went in about noon. We checked about Wes's making a trip to Bermuda before our trip to Greece. He has a reasonable chance of doing it. We went up in the Empire State Building and had quite a time just potting around town this afternoon. We met the lads about 5:30 and took off for a brew session before the show. This evening we all saw King Henry V. It was done just as the original Shakespearean work and was really a very well done production. July 6th. Wayne Duff had to get up early again to go to work while the rest of us sacked in. We played a little bridge this afternoon and then buzzed over to Jan Clark's house in Larchmont. We really had quite a crowd of Oberlinites. There were 7 fellows and 4 girls. Janie Gray among the girls and Pat Sweeney. We had a good picnic supper and a very enjoyable evening playing bridge. We caught some more beer on the way home and are ready to sack it now about 3 o'clock a.m. July 7th. We all sacked in late again this morning. George and Bill came out about noon and we all drove out to Point Lookout for the afternoon. The weather was perfect and the waves were really rolling. I got an enormous charge out of diving into the breakers and trying to fool the 10-foot ones. Wayne Duff's aunts had a fine supper fixed for us when we got home. I called Mother this morning and found that she has disposed of the ring for $375. That's a big load off my mind. We had a big bridge session this evening, and it was a good day. July 8th. Mrs. Spafford gave us a big boost out onto the island this morning as we left. We have had a terrific time during our stay in Floral Park. I imagine we ran up a rather sizable food bill. We hitchhiked out along Long Island Sound to Port Jefferson through some beautiful wooded country and caught the ferry over to Bridgeport. We had one hell of a time in New Haven, Connecticut, but caught a long, fast ride just north of the town, or rather east of it. This ride was with a young Phi Beta Kappa, who very much resembled Uncle Ted. We're shacked up now about 20 miles from Boston. Floral Park to north of Providence, Rhode Island, 170 miles. July 9th. We came whooping into Hingham this noon and found that everyone was home at the Harwood house except Pat. Mrs. Harwood and her 2 daughters gave us a very warm reception, and we're going to stay over until tomorrow night. The Harwoods have a 10-year-old Mongolian idiot, Peter, who isn't nearly so bad as the term might imply. He's not a bad little fellow and is able to talk and understand up to a certain point. We get along very nicely. Mrs. Harwood is an unusually fine person. The family lives in a very old frame house, which seems to be typical of the beautiful homes here in Hingham. They've all taken a genuine pleasure in redecorating it. The atmosphere in Hingham is that of a typical New England town. The homes are set well back off the street, and nearly all of them have shutters. Very picturesque. Priscilla and Prudence gave us a personally conducted tour through the town this afternoon. Pat fits very nicely into the whole pattern. We explored the old cemetery and the old ordinary, both very interesting. We met Mr. Harwood this evening, who seems to be of the same fine stuff as his wife. The 4 of us buzzed off this evening into the country surrounding Hingham and had a very enjoyable time. Prill was more than just slightly eager, but I couldn't quite see it. North of Providence, Rhode Island to Hingham, Massachusetts, 40 miles. July 10. This has really been a full day. Mr. Harwood drove us into Boston this morning, just in time to catch the sightseeing bus. It cost us $6.35 apiece, but was worth it. We first toured the city, then out to Lexington and Concord. We saw the Boston Common, Ye Old Oyster Shop, Paul Revere's home, north of Christ Church, shipyards, Breeds Hill, Beacon Hill, the Harvard campus and museum, the MIT campus, the Wayside Inn, the old North Bridge and Minuteman statue, Sleepy Hollow Cemetery, the homes of Longfellow, Emerson, Hawthorne, Thoreau, Alcott, Walden Pond, and probably several more places I can't recall just now. To me, the most fascinating thing of all was the narrowness and crookedness of many of the Boston streets. As the cows wandered, so the streets were built. I also very thoroughly enjoyed seeing the different poets' homes. Patty got in this evening and was very tired from her travels. She and Hess really seemed to be going for each other. We had a short chat about Nancy after everyone else was in bed. July 11th. We said goodbye to the Harwoods this morning and hit the road again. They could not have shown us more genuine hospitality. We passed through some country very similar to the Northwest as we worked up into Maine. Of course, it wasn't nearly so mountainous. Dick is getting quite a whiz out of it all. We're settled for the night in the Bangor Y. We passed by Whittier's home this afternoon. Hingham, Massachusetts to Bangor, Maine, 260 miles. July 12th. Right now, I might say that our money is really getting a little low. At the present time, I have exactly $2.57 left. We still have about 600 miles to go. Oh well. We had considerable trouble getting out of Maine today. My opinion of the state has dropped considerably. The land is poor and the people rather stupid. The potato country further north is better, they tell me. We picked up a long ride this afternoon through the White Mountains of New Hampshire and the Green Mountains of Vermont into the Adirondack Mountains. The driver was an unusual fellow, but very generous. Some of the mountain scenery today was beautiful. It was quite a sight to see the moon shining down on Lake Champlain this evening as we crossed it. I hope Wes got off to Bermuda okay. July 13th. The landlady gave us our breakfast this morning. Bless her heart. We passed through some very beautiful country this morning, going into Lake George, the town that is. Also had a batch of scenery around Bruce Partridge's hometown. Rather disappointed we saw no deer or moose. July 14th. This has been one of the more rugged days of my experience. We finally made it over to Niagara Falls this morning after a rather large host of vicissitudes. The falls were a beautiful sight this morning, however. By this afternoon we were both very weary and more than just slightly hungry, but then what is a person to do when he has no funds? This evening we pulled into Sandusky, Ohio about 12:30 and found quite a few interesting things. Among other things, we're supposed to sail from Newport News tomorrow. I doubt strongly if we'll make it. Now, if you'll pardon me, I'm going to wash up and hit the sack. July 15th. I called Washington and New Windsor this morning and managed to get our trip put off a week. This afternoon I drove over to school to get some job pictures. Ran into Bob Roth, Ev Adams, and Chet Slocum. Bob has just been discharged and is going to Columbia Law School in the fall. Ev is going to teach in Honolulu for a year starting next fall. She's staying over on the Castalia farm now and asked me to stop over this evening. Chet is back in summer school and thinks he is interested in law now. The campus is pretty slow now with just a few students. We all drove out to the Fred Zooks this evening. The water has really been raising Cain with the Chaussee. July 16th. Took the bus into Cleveland this noon and made a call at the DeBeckman Company. Mr. Prindle was not in, but I had quite a chat with the personnel manager. He gave me some good tips about job hunting. There is a small possibility of a good job with the company. Ev and I went over to Cedar Point this evening and danced to Bobby Sherwood. I might say the music was really great. We had a fine time. July 17th. I finished the job applications this afternoon. They were quite lengthy. Then buzzed out to the Caswell farm this afternoon. This farm belongs to Amos Miller, who is Ev's uncle. She showed me all over the farm. It was all very interesting and new to me. I couldn't get this car started when I wanted to bring Ev into the show this evening, so we came in with her mother and sister, who are also going to the show. Ev and her mother and sister don't get along well at all. I can't quite figure it out. Ev drove me back into town after I couldn't get the car started again after the show. July 18th. I got up about 8 this morning and went out to the farm after the car with one of the Waldock salesmen. It started all right when he pushed me. Gus had to put in a new battery. The Beckling rammed the dock this afternoon, so we were late getting over to the point. Had a fine time over there. This evening we all drove down to Marion, Ohio to see Terry Freilich. He's only 11 days old now. Harold Freilich is breaking rocks with a sledge on a dam project this summer. He's really shouldered quite a responsibility. July 19th. I sacked in all morning. Dick, Carol, and I spent the afternoon at Cedar Point. The sun was really hot. The family took a speedboat ride over to the point this evening and listened to Johnny Long's band for a while. He sounds pretty smooth. July 20th. No word about the trip today. Mom and I cleaned out the garage this afternoon. This evening, Ev and I went over to Cedar Point again and danced to Johnny Long. He's a left-handed fiddle player with a mighty smooth outfit. No trouble with the car for a change. July 21. I went to church this morning for the first time since Palm Sunday. While sitting in church this morning, I suddenly decided to do what I could about going to Australia next fall. So I clipped off 3 quick letters. We listened to the symphony this afternoon that is, and I tried to show the family how to play bridge. Good sport. July 22. I sacked in again this morning. Dick and I played a rather wicked golf game this afternoon. We each lost 3 balls. This evening we drove out by the Caswell farm and played a few hands of bridge. July 23rd. Still no word. This sack-happy life gets old rather fast. Dick and I worked on the weeds this afternoon. This evening we drove over to Lakeside, Ohio, and then played a little bridge later. July 24th. My legs ached like mad today because of that weeding yesterday. Played a quick 9 holes of golf this afternoon, not too sharp. The family had a picnic over by Lakeside, Ohio this evening and went fishing afterwards. Pop caught 2 small catfish. July 25th. We mowed and trimmed the yard this morning. This afternoon we played bridge, and this evening we all went to the show. From this day forward, what an existence. July 26th. A card came from the Brethren today saying that we can expect a delay of a week or 2. Damn it. I read through a book on concert musicians this afternoon and found it really fascinating. This Toscanini is quite a fellow. We had a big bridge session this evening and quite a discussion. July 27th. A slight contradiction came through from New Windsor this morning in the form of a telegram telling us to be in Baltimore Tuesday to get our Seaman's papers. Bob Slaughter called this noon saying that if we're going to get anything done, we'd better get right on the ball and bulldoze our jaunt through. So we're planning to meet him and Wes in Baltimore Monday morning. We pulled out this afternoon with the notion of getting into Wheeling tonight. We got hung up royally in the little town of Georgetown after dark. It was a small, damn coal mining town with only 2 Saturday night joints operating. These hillbillies down here are really characters. There was no place to stay in town, so we backtracked to Cadiz in the back of a pickup truck. We have a nice room here, but it's after 1:30. Poor evening. We nearly froze solid in Georgetown. July 28th. Beautiful day today, and our luck was pretty fair. These Allegheny Mountains are quite scenic in places. We rode into Baltimore this evening about 8:30 with a fellow that was really some guy. He is a successful contractor and gave us his whole story. He thinks that chemical sales is a very good deal, and that money is the last consideration when just getting started. We're shacked up now in a $5 hotel room and we'll beat it over to the Chamber of Commerce building first thing in the morning. July 29th. Forgot to mention the many strip mines we passed yesterday. They really ruin the earth. Baltimore seems to be filled with street after street of two-story red houses with white steps. Very unusual. We were at the Chamber of Commerce building this morning at 9 sharp. Wes and Bob were there, and we all got our seaman's papers without too much difficulty. We grabbed a cab out to the waterfront and found that the ship bound for Greece will not sail until Wednesday. Next, we hitchhiked out to New Windsor just in time to have supper. I talked to Ziegler after supper, and I think Dick and I have at least a chance of getting on the ship Wednesday. The service center here seems to be a fairly religious spot. Most of the young guys running around here are COs from the hills. Some okay, but many on the horny side. We had a quick rubber before hitting the sack. I ran into Bob Daischler as we were checking out of the hotel this morning. He's commissioned now and plans to stay in the Marine Corps for a while. July 30th. This has been a very long day. Wes and Bob went into Washington, and Dick and I went nuts back at New Windsor. The brethren can have it. This afternoon we found that all 4 of us are scheduled to sail for Greece on the Henry Dearborn. Hot darn. However, as Slaughter said, he won't believe it until we've actually set sail. We'll leave here early in the morning. July 31. We all caught the 6:08 train into Baltimore this morning and went out to the dock. The Henry Dearborn is a slow liberty and not nearly so big as we expected. We took an easy physical, signed aboard, bought some cigarettes and other little gadgets, and saw Fort McHenry today. We're not sailing before tomorrow. We all went out drinking this evening and saw a very disgusting burlesque show. August 1st, 1946. We squared away our quarters in a big way this morning. The ship isn't sailing until tomorrow, so we had the afternoon and evening off. I read 300 pages of the book Citizen Tom Paine. Very interesting book. The meals are terrific. Wes buzzed over to see Pat again. We hope we sail tomorrow. To be continued. Well, good luck to you with your efforts in family history, if this interests you. Finding, preserving, and old letters, diaries, and photographs, and interviewing elderly relatives while they're alive. As they say, dead men tell no tales, and after people die, you can't ask them any questions. So anyway, today John, my father graduated from Oberlin College, the end of an era, and he's off to summer working on a boat shipping horses to Greece and Yugoslavia. Thank you so much for watching. God bless you. Take care, and I'll see you next time.